Good morning. Welcome to worship from our Old Ship Meeting House, worship of the First Parish in Hingham, Massachusetts, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Reverend Ken Reed Brown. It's good to have you with us this morning. Wherever you are, whoever you are, all are welcome. We begin as we do each week with a chime and then the prelude, which is Fugue in D minor by Gottlieb Muffat. We begin. Call to worship comes from the words attributed to Kalidasa. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision, but today well lived. Today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day as we begin our time of worship, gathered together far and near, and it is good so to be gathered. Our introit.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
With thanks to Chris Marr for singing that beautiful ancient Buddhist meditation. For our chalice lighting words this morning, Diane Elliott. Diane, thank you.
Good morning. This morning I'm lighting the candle of the chalice for Sophia Lyon Foz, who lived in 1876 to 1978. She was a pioneer in the development of the Unitarian Universalist Sunday School movement. Her inspiration focused on the child's sense of wonder and their life experiences. She wrote, "Children are like gardens already planted with seeds of possibility for learning and growing. It is our job as a religious community to provide the soil, the water, the sunlight in order for their gardens to grow." I light this candle of gratitude for Sophia Lyons Boz and her inspiration. And I also light it for hope that we all can create a garden of faith for our children and each other.
Thank you, Diane. And I see you have lit a candle and Chloe has lit a chalice. And in that same spirit, I will light here in our Old Ship Meeting House, the flaming chalice of our faith. Now we sing. I hope some of you have hymn books and more of you have downloaded the hymn by Unitarian Universalist troubadour and composer Jim Scott, Gather the Spirit, number 347. Gather the Spirit. Body and you're all singing that great anthem, Gather the Spirit. Good morning again, and welcome again to worship from our Old Ship Meeting House. Welcome to old timers who've been at Old Ship worship for decades or years, and welcome to newcomers. If you are new and would like to learn more about us, our website is oldshipchurch.org. Go on and you can learn everything about us organizationally and the spirit of our congregation, our social activism, and the rest. Everybody is welcome. The only announcement this morning is to remind you, for those who've been here many weeks before, that our fellowship hour will immediately follow the service on this same Zoom link. So just stay right with us afterwards, after the service, and we will gather however many still together and have some breakout rooms for conversation for another period of time. All are welcome to fellowship hour, just as all are welcome to worship. Well, the time for all ages this morning falls to me. Chloe will be preaching later on, so we have traded places. I'm going to tell a story that comes from what are known as the Buddhist Jataka tales. These are stories told about the Buddha and his previous incarnations in one or another animal form. The particular book I have is titled When the Buddha Was an Elephant, but this story is called The Boar and the Tiger. And here's the story. So long ago, far away in a village, there lived a carpenter, a fine carpenter. One day when he was out in the woods looking for more fresh wood for his work, he discovered a baby boar, a piglet, trapped in a deep pit. Well, overcome with sympathy, he rescued the piglet, brought him up out of the pit, brought him home, and he became a pet of the carpenter's. As the piglet grew into a boar, became stronger, he was able to help the carpenter with his work. He could lift great big logs for him. He could carve some of the wood with his tusks, which were growing longer by the day. Big help to the carpenter. But as time went on, and the boar grew indeed very big and strong, the carpenter worried that the people in the village would be afraid of the boar and might try to hurt him or even kill him. So with great sadness, but wanting the best for his boar friend, he took him one day deep into the forest and let him go free. Well, the boar wandered around for a little while, searching for food and for a place he might call home. And indeed, he found a cave, and just outside the cave were all sorts of good things to eat, roots and fruit and all kinds of things that he could eat. And so he feasted, and after a while, some other boars came by, a herd of boars, all ages, and he asked them, because it turned out this was their home, he asked them, could I stay here with you and make this my home? And they said, well, yes, but you need to know this is a very dangerous place. Why is it so dangerous, he asked. Well, every morning a tiger comes by looking for breakfast, and he goes off with one of our piglets. It's a terribly dangerous place. You might not want to live here. The boar said, a tiger does that, and you with your great big tusks and how strong you are, well, we're going to see about that. So the next morning at about dawn, just as the sun was rising, the boar organized his new friends. Very carefully, he had the mothers of the piglets all in the middle of the circle, and then in a wider circle, stronger boars, and at the very outside of the circle, the strongest boars of all. Well, the tiger, as was his habit, came by, ready for breakfast, but instead he saw all the boars lined up in front of him. The tiger glared at the boars. The boars glared at the tiger. The tiger moved forward. The boars moved forward. The tiger began to think, you know, those tusks look pretty darn sharp. Those boars look awfully strong, and they're all together. He got pretty worried, and he turned around, ran off into the forest to get his breakfast somewhere else, and he was never to be seen again by this herd of boars. This herd of boars. The boars shouted out, "We have won! Unity has prevailed!" And from then on, the Boers lived in peace in their beautiful home, no tiger ever again bothering them, having learned that sticking together and working together makes all the difference. Here ends the story. One other comment, though, that occurred to me just as I was thinking of the story again this morning. The story is also about how one good deed leads to another. The carpenter, having rescued the piglet, turns out, because the piglet grew up into a Boer who saved many other piglets. So one good deed leads to another if we all work together. Well, here ends our time for all ages. Which brings us to our time all together of sharing joys, sorrows, and concerns. As always, you may enter a joy or a sorrow or a concern into chat, and I'll begin our time by reading several that have come to me this week from Old Ship folks. Eileen McIntyre asks that we light a candle honoring her namesake and godmother, namely her mother's youngest sister, Eileen Concannon Curran, who died earlier this month in her 90s, the last, Eileen says, of 6 Concannon siblings to pass on. The candle, Eileen says, is with joy for her long life, full faculties to the last, yet with sadness for old extended family misunderstandings and rifts, yet with hope for family healing. So the candle holds all of this, Eileen. Karen Schneider asked for a candle of sorrow for the passing of her first beekeeping mentor and her dear friend, Dave Hayden. Karen wrote, "May he once again find the peace he lost during his illness and rejoin the bees, people, and animals he so dearly loved." Ellen Curtin asks for a candle of healing wishes for her dear friend Diane's brother, Ken, who had major esophageal surgery last Friday. He has a long road to recovery, and all prayers and good thoughts, Ellen says, are of course appreciated. Elizabeth Murray asks for a candle for her father, candle in his honor, marking the anniversary of his death, February 1st, 2013, at the end of a long, productive, and good life, as she shares. Maureen Upton would like a candle of concern for her sister, Eileen, who's been in the hospital since January 13th. Maureen requests that everyone say prayers for Eileen. And this last candle, Mary Thomas asked for a candle illuminating Old Ship as a community, as reflected in our new 2020 Old Ship membership directory, produced through the good works of our Nurturing Community Council, chaired by Sharon Pren and Ivy Butterworth, who has now recently moved out of the area. A vibrant visibility, Mary writes, comes through the faces and activities of Old Ship and the beautiful photographs in the directory, along with information as to how to reach one another, readily available there. Mary says, "Thank you, members of the membership committee, Nurturing Community Council, for portraying us as a solid community in these challenging times." So I light the candles for all of these joys, sorrows, and concerns, and for any that have been entered into chat and any that are in our hearts, though neither named or written this morning. May we join hearts and minds in a time of meditation, prayer, and then shared silence. Meditation, contemplation, just sitting. Sitting with whatever thoughts are coming and going, with whatever sounds we hear, whatever we're able to see. Sitting with whatever feelings might be coming and going. Sitting, letting it all be for now, just sitting. Meditation. With each breath, a deeper presence. Then, perhaps noticing when a prayer arises in our hearts, perhaps in the form of a hope or a wish or a deep yearning for a dear one's well-being, including some of those we've heard of this morning in the hospital, are grieving. Prayers, wishes, yearnings for relief from suffering, perhaps for ourselves or for others in our circles of concern, for all beings. Prayers, yearnings for justice, for peace. Sitting with our prayers, letting our prayers be, letting them go where prayers go. To those we love, to all beings, to the God of our hearts and our lives. Now may our meditations and prayers continue in a time of shared silence. Our anthem this morning will be shared by our soprano soloist, Heather Nolasco. I'll Be Seeing You is the anthem. Heather, with thanks.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through.
Thank you, Heather. I think I saw a few people singing along that old standard. Thanks so much. Our reading this morning will be shared by our reader, Keely Jordan. Keely, thanks so much.
Our reading is from the Reverend Donna McLean Greenley. I am all in favor of acting in the living present. There is no other time when we can act. Today is the time for labor and for learning and laughter and love. Today is when we help our friend and forgive our enemy. Yesterday is no longer with us, and tomorrow is too late. Our uniqueness lies in not being slaves to the present. We should act in the present, but we should be able to transcend the present. We can remember the past and predict the future. We can carry the past with us, and we can plan and look forward to the future. Have confidence in the future. Let the educators keep trying to discover better methods of education. Let the doctors and scientists find the cures for cancer and heart disease and the common cold. Let professional political scientists and amateur city groups explore better ways of practicing real democracy. Let children look forward to maturity and let adults relish life. It is our business to build hope in the human heart until we look forward to every new day as somehow better than the last. The past is a prologue. We must act in the present, but we must believe in the future. Here ends the reading.
Thank you, Keely. Dana McLean Greeley, who was the source of that reading, was a towering figure in our movement, about the same generation, I believe, as Sophia Foz. Diane had her chalice lighting at the outset. You can look them up, Dana Greeley. Our morning offering. As you know, you're able to give to our monthly outreach offering, which this month, concluding today, is to Renewal House, the shelter program of Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry. And you may also contribute to our operating expenses, our plate offering each week. You may do one or both. And you can find these opportunities on our website on the donate, at the donate link. And then there's a pull down menu for a number of funds, including those two. So in advance, I thank you for your generosity. Our offertory will be sung by Rich Jensen. This Little Light of Mine, a particular and beautiful arrangement, I'm sure, coming from Rich.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All through the night, I'm gonna let it shine. All through the night, I'm gonna let it shine. All through the night, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
does he do that? It's so beautiful, those low notes. Thank you, Rich. And thank you once again, all of you, for your gifts. Our preacher this morning is Chloe Brede. You've all come to know Chloe in her roles with us this year as our interim director of religious education. Perhaps not quite as many of you are familiar with the fact that the other half of her position with us is as our parish administrator, our office administrator, and she has been a great gift to us all this year in those capacities. Chloe has completed her preparation for Unitarian Universalist ministry. She completed this last year and had a successful meeting with what we call our fellowship committee denominationally. So she has a direction in her life, but right now we are really delighted, have been really delighted to have Chloe with us for these months. And it's a pleasure, that means, to be able to introduce her this morning as our preacher. Chloe.
Thank you so much, Ken. I'm happy to be with you all as always. We are in a liminal space with this pandemic. The way things were, the normal, has been disrupted. We're in between how things used to be and where they are going, a kind of waiting time. We know the pre-COVID reality, and we're waiting, perhaps patiently, perhaps not so patiently, on the threshold of our post-COVID times. Old Ship also sits in a liminal space. As the interim director of religious education, or DRE, I'm here to journey with you during this in-between time. The time between the last DRE and the next one, the time between current programs and the next ones. This liminal space. Richard Rohr, the Franciscan theologian, says that we have to allow ourselves to be drawn out of business as usual and remain patiently on the threshold where we are betwixt and between the familiar and the completely unknown. This is the liminal. As we sit in this place between the familiar and the completely unknown, we may wonder, what comes next? Will things be different? Will we be more enlightened, more engaged? Will this in-between time serve a purpose? My strongest memory of my church's youth group was sitting outside a local coffee shop chatting with the group. I'm from Virginia, and you can sit outside at almost any time of year. We were a small group. There were 3 of us youth and 2 advisors. Our advisors, Sandy and Brian, were 2 adult leaders in the congregation. Sandy was an audiologist in her 50s, and Brian, a computer technician in his 40s. While I don't remember our conversations, the group was a safe space to talk to youth from outside my school and to interact with adults, especially these adults. Both Sandy and Brian were grounded individuals who were interested in spending an hour each week with us. Sandy role modeled what confidence looked like and perhaps how we could emulate that. As a teen in Southern Virginia, Brian showed us that it was normal to be queer and how our lives as queer youth might look in the future. Brian and his husband had been together at that point for more than 15 years, and I think nowadays it's going on 25 or 30. As an awkward teenager considering my own identity, both as a queer person and as a near adult, I wanted to be these folks. They represented warmth and caring and stability. Thinking back to that time, we were a small group. In middle school, our religious education or RE cohort had 10 kids, and we had slowly shrunk to 3. Some had found other activities to participate in, like the high school musical or band or cheerleading. Others had embraced friends from outside the church. I can't help but wonder why we kept at it. Why did the three of us youth keep meeting with these adults? Perhaps my religious education director at the time knew three people were still important. Perhaps she knew that this was one of the main social outlets for the homeschooled member of our group, or perhaps that we needed relationships with adults from outside our homes. Or perhaps she even knew that we needed these friends from outside our school. I don't know, but I do know I still have positive memories from those times. A couple years later, after graduating from college, I spent some time again at my home church. This time, the church had a thriving young adult group. It was surprising. The youth group from some years earlier had been small, and a young adult group wasn't even a concept at that time. Somehow, a few folks in their early 20s had found their way into our church and come together. We hung out at coffee hour, met up on Friday nights for snacks and conversation, and made friends. The group thrived for a couple years, and it was lovely. What is the purpose of this liminal space? Rohr thinks liminal space, the in-between, is how we grow. If there are not disruptions in the way things always are in the normal, we will not be asked to change. We will not be forced to change or to grow. We will not be forced to recognize or realize a better way or a new way. Last Sunday at coffee hour, we talked about the RE program. I was heartened to hear bright memories recalled by observers and participants. Memories of moving coming of age services and inspiring youth activities and worship services. Intergenerational services that prove worship can be fun. Stories that inspire both kids and adults. Thriving parent groups and spaces for teens to be themselves, even if they felt weird or awkward. Times when the program was small, times when it was bigger. Harder times and more energetic times. These memories provided insight into periods when we have felt stagnant and periods when we grew. Insight into traditions that seem to matter and traditions that might be a little easier to let go of. The past matters to this process, not only to gain insights, but also as a way of knowing ourselves. If the program here at Old Ship had always been small, perhaps we would not be worrying about our current size of about 20 kids. How does the narrative of what we once were affect our outlook? The narrative of being once big and now small, what does that do? In knowing this, in some ways it provides hope. We were once big and perhaps we could be that way again. On the other hand, this narrative may stunt us. Are we able to fully appreciate our current state if we're always yearning for the grandeur of the past? Being in this liminal space can be uncomfortable. It may feel like we should be passing through it quicker, that we should be fixing things and moving on. The intent, though, is to pause and to live into that space, to take a deep breath and step away from the anxious pace of normality and sit with it. To look at the past, to live into our current present, and ultimately use what we learn to decide our future. To intentionally take that time in that space to think and to dream. The reading today from the Reverend Dana McLean Greeley urges us to be future focused, to believe in the future. Greeley was the last president of the American Unitarian Association and the first president of the newly formed Unitarian Universalist Association. He served such pulpits as Arlington Street Church in downtown Boston and the First Parish in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I can only imagine that shepherding the merger of two denominations would take some forward thinking. He had to be able to imagine what the world would look like with the unification of the U's, the Unitarians, and the U's, the Universalists. He had to lead a faith through the liminal space of merger and into a bright future as he imagined it. Ken has talked about the world we can imagine after the pandemic and the work we still have left to do, even as we emerge from liminal space. The work of addressing issues like racism and climate change. But this work of what comes next exists here too, even in our church community. With RE, we will go from thinking about the past to considering our present and our future. The future may not be what we expect, and it may not even be what we plan. I would have never guessed as I sat with my youth group so many years ago that 4 short years later, I would be a member of a thriving young adult group. I could not have been more pleasantly surprised by that. I imagine that the families present at Old Ship in the 1980s were also pleasantly surprised by the energy that took hold in RE and in the congregation in the 1990s. Things change in unexpected ways. Here at Old Ship, we'll have a new director of religious education soon, and possibly a new building, and even new ways of being together post-pandemic. We will see our youth graduate to bright futures and the introduction of new people and new families into our community. Greeley tells us that our business is to build hope in the human heart. Hope in the human heart that the next day will be brighter than the last. That's a hard calling, especially right now, especially as we deal with the discomfort of in-between times. This is our business, though, our calling, to imagine our bright future and to act. The possibilities are endless and they're exciting. I can't wait to see what the next chapter holds for Old Ship. Let's keep living into the liminal so we can build our bright future together. May it be so. Amen.
Thank you, Chloe, for that hopeful, beautiful message. Thank you very much. We'll be carrying a lot of your words and sentiments into the near future and into the more distant future. Thank you so much. Many flames have been lit this morning, the flames of our candles, the flames of our hopes, flames of our dreams, perhaps flames of our deep concerns. And as I extinguish these flames, all that remains with us in our hearts, wherever we go, whenever we do, whoever we are. This is when I extinguish the flame of our chalice of our faith, flame of our faith. Faith we carry with us in our hearts and in our lives. Going to sing together again. Closing hymn is Just as Long as I Have Breath. It's number 6 in your hymn book if you have one, or if you've downloaded it. Just as Long as I Have Breath, number 6. Just as long as I have breath, I With each breath and with each beat of our heart, may we say yes to life, yes to love. Each of us with the unique and precious gift that is our life. So may it ever be.
Peace be yours as you scatter from here. Anywhere you go, God is always near, loving and calming your deepest fear. May God's peace be yours.
And the ballet by Cecile Chaminade. Thank you, Christopher. Thank you all for being with us this morning. Go in peace.